President Bola Tinubu promised Nigerians that he was going to hit the ground running tonight. The question is he running in the right direction? Babajide Ogusowo, founder of Leadership by Data and Channels Television's data analyst, is here to share insights about the impact of the new foreign exchange guideline on citizens and the economy. Babajide, great to have you again on the News at 10.
Good evening, Ayatollah.
So let's quickly get into it. Of course, many are optimistic about the advantages of the new foreign exchange rate guideline by the CBN. Tell me, is there any downsides to this program? Let's start with that.
You know, there are. But first, before the downsides, there are positives. Just like a coin. Whatever you toss, there will be heads and tails. The upside is it's an effect. The plan is to have a more effective open market whereby there will be less interventions from the government, less corruption, and there'll be a more or less a balanced playing field for market participants. So there's an upside. But again, like the coin, there are three downsides to this move, and we have to be very clear on that. First downside, incomes will be affected. What do I mean? Today, if you go online and you search for the Monopoly game, it's approximately the equivalent of the minimum wage. That is the situation we have even with this policy, whereby the Nigerian minimum wage is the equivalent of Monopoly money. So incomes will be affected by this policy. Second is number of Nigerians living in extreme poverty. Again, the World Bank standard, $2.15, based on what we see going on in the market. It simply means that as the Naira depreciates or is devalued, or as the rate of the Naira weakens, more Nigerians will get poorer. Statement of fact. But perhaps the third, and even most important, is the cost of living, Ayo. And let's take a look at how that has evolved since 1999 under the various central bank governors as we wait for what the decision of the president will be regarding the suspended governor and who potentially he wants to work with next. And if we look at our history, in 1999, when President Obasanjo came in, the concerns were that a 102 Naira exchange rate to the dollar was extremely bad. That was the perception in 1999. When the first CBN governor came in, Joseph Sanusi, by the time he left, 140 Naira, an average under his tenure depreciation of 7% per annum. Then we had Charles Soludo. He came in at 140 Naira. After 5 years, he left 181 Naira. Average depreciation again, 6%. But between Chukwuma Soludo and Sanusi Lamido, between that change of governorship, the market was volatile. And so when Sanusi settled down, the exchange rate was 166 Naira. He had to defend that exchange rate with a lot of reserves. So reserves declined by $6 billion during his term, but exchange rate was a bit more stable. And then Godwin Emefiele came in at 167 Naira in 2014, now 765 Naira, an average depreciation of 40% per annum. And so, since 1999, we've moved from 102 Naira to 765 Naira. The question on the lips of Nigerians is, what will be the exchange rate in another decade?
Which brings me to the next question. What are the facts, about how the CBN allocates dollars and other foreign currencies to businesses?
There are lots of ways to look at this. Perhaps one way to look at it is to look at how much the CBN allocates to those that really trade. So we have goods and we have services, but trading goods accounts for most of CBN's allocation of dollars. And if we take a look at exactly the facts, is it the manufacturing sector, or is it fuel that takes most of these dollars? Here are the facts. Let's look at the last 3 years. In 2020, Nigeria imported 19.8 trillion Naira worth of goods. 64% of those goods were manufactured goods. Fuel accounted for 15%. In summary, in 2020, most of our imports, most of the demand for dollars, manufactured goods. Well, here's what has happened between 2020 and 2022. By 2022, fuel and related fuel products accounted for 31% compared to 15% of total imports. So we've seen in just 2 years, allocation to fuel has doubled. In 2020, fuel accounted for 15% of imports. now 31% of imports, which has led to manufacturing having less concentration of imports. But the summary, Ayo, is that manufactured goods still accounts for majority of what comes into the country, and so manufactured goods, if the price that they buy dollars goes up, their inputs and related output for consumers will go higher.
So the president already has made some bold economic moves, I should say, and I just want to ask, how soon or long will this impact be felt by Nigerians?
Again, it depends on oil. I always joke that Ayotunde is your first name, Balogun is your surname. If Nigeria were to be personified, Nigeria will be our first name and the surname will be Oilamo. So because the country is so dependent on oil, President Tinubu's success will be determined on what he does and what he doesn't do with respect to crude oil. And here are the reasons. Let's take a look at what our net trade balance has been in the last 7 years, excluding crude oil, because that is the right way to look at it. A lot of times, you have economists and analysts wanting to look at that net trade balance, including crude oil. But the right way to look at it for such a nation is to look at our trade balance, excluding crude oil. And what it will show is that year on year, for the last 7 years, even and beyond, we have performed poorly without crude oil. In 2016, our net trade balance, excluding crude oil, in excess of 7 trillion naira. By 2021, our net trade balance, excluding crude oil, in excess of 23 trillion naira. Today, the summary is that in the last 7 years, our cumulative net trade balance, excluding crude oil, more than 100 trillion naira. And so I repeat, President Bola Tinubu's success will not just be dependent on the policies he has made in these first 2 weeks, it will be determined by what he does and what he does not do with reference to Nigeria's crude oil.
And we'll definitely be keeping tabs on it as it continues.
And don't forget to keep your monopoly money. It's equivalent to Nigeria's minimum wage right now.
We'll certainly do that. Babajide Gusau, thank you so much for your thoughts on the news at 10.
The pleasure is all mine.